Okay, I'm not coming on to say much tonight, being the eve of the midterms. There's been some absentee voting going on and other things, of course, but I thought it might be a good idea for me to come up here and just recognize where we are. Hello, everyone, as you come in. I appreciate you being here. Like I say, I'm not going to be here long. We're not going to get involved in a long chat or anything. You all need to look at what's happening and take the time to make sure you're educated on what's happening. Thank you for letting me know on 5 by 5. Uh, why did I call this a matter of conscience and witness? There are a lot of arguments about whether we should vote anymore. I've talked about those. I know Brian has on High Impact Flicks, and there are others. There are some problems, legal problems with voting. One is that you are basically consenting, unfortunately, even if you're against what's going on, taking part in it the way they've structured the elections now. You're basically consenting to being ruled by tyrants if that's what happens. It's an unfortunate thing that's occurred over the last couple of centuries, and I don't think there's any way to turn it around at this point. So, why vote at all? Why vote at all? Well, I've mentioned it a little in the past, and there are people that are much more positive about this whole situation than I am. The power elite have control of the system, and they are not going to allow you to go too far. They'll maybe even allow some people in that you think will help you, but then in the end they'll sell you out. That's been our experience for a very long time now. This entire thing in Ukraine is a good example. Or they use propaganda to the point where they only give you the side, of course, that they want, which is basically using psychological warfare against our own people, which is technically not legal. At least it hasn't been in the past until the last decade or so, actually since the Patriot Act. But the CIA admitted to doing this even back in the 60s and the 70s. What I'm saying here is that I'm not placing a whole lot of faith even in the supposed good Americans who may get into office here in the next couple of days. And it seems like that once they get in, they get compromised. And politics is about compromise. And in the United States, unfortunately, that's the name of the game, rather than negotiating and compromising about administrations, etc. The Bill of Rights should never be on the table for compromise, ever, ever, ever. When Trump said that he was for civil asset forfeiture, that again showed where he was. And I know he's not running, this isn't the presidential election, but that's what I'm talking about. Just because government makes some alteration in the way they operate, if they're taking your property, if they're taking your freedoms, your liberty, then the Bill of Rights apply. But that, of course, they get around that by this supposed civil asset forfeiture deal, and I've talked about that before, just to show you how criminal they are. And a lot of people have been hurt by that. The old theory was it's better to let, 10 guilty men go free than one innocent man go to prison. Well, that changed when this entire thing became a legal industrial complex. A lot of the people, Biden, for instance, apparently has quite a bit of stock in the prison system, the private prison system. So, he voted for people going to prison for minor drug violations. And I'm not going to get into the history of marijuana in particular. If you don't know what that is, it's pretty disgusting what the United States and actually everybody has done with that. But at any rate, again, here I'm getting a little verbose, but what I would say is that at this point, voting, even though you do it in secret, supposedly, right, and it's going to be counted supposedly, although we know how that goes. I think voting at this point is a place where you're exercising your conscience. some people say, well, I don't want to vote, and I am exercising my conscience, and I understand that, just like Brian says, and some others. But what I'm talking about is that you're making a statement about what what you consider to be right, and you're witnessing against the evil that is committed by those who are doing the evil. Now, I'm not watching the emergency broadcast test. Interesting, though, isn't it, Jesse of BP Earthwatch is mentioning that. Anything to get us worried, to set us off guard, the threat of nuclear war, all this it's not against Russia and it's not against China. It's against you, as I've said so many times. It's to manipulate you so that you will give up your liberties and your life in some situations, and in the future quite a bit. But getting back to this issue, don't feel bad. Don't if you decide to vote tomorrow, um, look at it that you're testifying either for or against the evil by the way you vote. And I would say, well, what about testifying for or against the good? Well, there isn't much good left in our system right now. There really isn't. If they can compromise away, if they can put your rights in the balance and say that that's politics, then what it really is tyranny, because those are supposed to be inviolate, as I've often said. They want to talk about how they're going to change the apportionment for taxes. I'm really going far back now. Or if how many things they want, how many plates they want in the White House dinner table, things like that. That's one thing, but when they start talking about your rights, that's something that can be compromised away by political agreement and debate, we've gone too far. So what I would say is that we need to testify against these people so that are doing these things. And I'm not going to name any names except one here in a few minutes, but if a person says that they're going to stand for something that you feel is important, and I'm not talking about robbing Peter to pay Paul, taking Peter's money to give to Paul, all right? I'm not talking about taxes and things like that. I'm talking about, for instance, the horrible things we've seen over the last 2 years, the invasions of our liberties, the taking away of our First Amendment rights, our God-given First Amendment protected rights, and all the others, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, etc. If they say they're going to support that, great. If they've shown that they're not, Buttigieg, that wouldn't be a good example, but Biden, if he was running, and I don't want to go through all the different states and everything, except I'm going to mention one here in just a minute. But those people, despite what your political leanings may be, either whatever party you are, you can't vote party anymore. That's what's destroyed us. You have to vote principle, and so by voting principle, you're making a testimony either for or against. All right, not just electing somebody. You're making a testimony for or against evil and for and against good, depending upon how you vote. It's a matter of conscience this time. So I would say that it would probably be a good thing to go out there. I mean, it's a division anyway. Our country is in dire danger right now, and they want to start wars so that they can eliminate you and eliminate their social contract with the people, so they don't have to fulfill that anymore. That's really what this is all about now. So I guess what I'm saying is, and I'm kind of not saying it the best way I could, it's been an interesting day today for me. A few disappointments and realizations that this is a really dangerous time, and they don't really give a rat's ass about you. It's all about their powers. I've often said they will destroy everything rather than lose power. But voting your conscience, testifying by doing so, I think is an important thing to do right now. Again, I'm not going to comment on any political races that are going on at this point right now. If you've been watching Biden and not just the Democrats, but a lot of Republicans too, uh, if they support the war in Ukraine, if they support what happened in the last 2.5 years, 3 years now, in any way, shape, or form, if they're asking for amnesty for those who pushed all those things, they're your enemy, okay? And you need to testify against them. Now, there are those who will say, but Roy, we've got to make sure we take the House and the Senate with our people. I think your conscience is much more important to voice right now. I think that in the end is going to hold up longer than any idea that we're going to take control of this government through voting. But exercising your conscience and declaring your testimony either for or against them, I think, is worthwhile at this point. Okay? I know, I could argue with all the political people and oh, we've got to, it's like a battle. It's like a war. You gotta take what ground you can. Well, sometimes that ground isn't worth taking, frankly. So anyway, I just want to come on and say, use this time to witness and to exercise your conscience. I'm not going to really talk about all the crazy stuff that's going on. Jesse just mentioned the EBS, the Emergency Broadcast System. They're trying to scare you. They're trying to say, oh, if you don't vote the way they want you to, then you're the enemy. You're the insurrectionist. You're the people that are causing all the trouble. So they're admitting that the ballot box doesn't work anymore. They're admitting that. Will we be successful tomorrow in at least putting some brakes on this descent into catastrophe? I don't know, because again, the people that are in control, you're not voting for. They're not the ones that can change it. The people we put in are not the people that can change it unless they get really forceful, which we've seen they're not really willing to do. So that's just my piece for the night. I won't take any longer except for one thing. I've been watching this Senate race in Utah, and Mike Lee has a lot of problems. Okay, he does. I'm not going to enumerate those, but all those politicians do because they don't listen to you. They listen to the money interests and to the people that give them important access. I guess I'll put it that way. But I've long said that if a person has ties to the intelligence community, that they should, by law, be restricted, be forbidden, actually, from holding any office, any elected office, and probably any government office. Will that ever happen? No. The CIA a long time ago said that they were going to start running their people for political office, elections, and also, of course, taking over bureaucracies. The intelligence community is our most dangerous domestic enemy. Lying is their profession. Death is the result, both of countries and of individuals. If you vote to put in a known intelligence operative into a political office, you are assisting in the open destruction of your political subdivision, your state, and even the nation. I could sit here and enumerate some things about the individual I'm talking about. I'm mentioning the one who's opposing Mike Lee, of course, Evan McMullin. We saw what he did with the election in 2016 and again in 2020. And he is not who he pretends to be. And I saw an article from Reuters saying that he's an independent, he's going to bring some balance where you can work with both sides of the aisle. When your Bill of Rights, when your very lives are at stake, you don't need a compromiser. And I know my message tonight is not going to make it to the people that really matter. But a compromiser who is out there to take the road for the banks and the intelligence community is not your friend, no matter what the spoken word is. He will betray you. So he's the only one I'm going to talk about. I'm just focusing that on the people there in Utah. Again, my input is probably not going to make any difference. But you folks in Utah, a lot of you are Mormons. And so you've seen, if you've ever read your book, the Book of Mormon, it talks about secret combinations and Gadianton robbers. And that if you ever allow those to take hold, that they will destroy you. I could tell you where that came from, but that doesn't matter. I think the moral of the story is what counts. We've seen the same thing in the Bible with the different situations that happen there. I won't go into those either. There are many of them. But you let these people in that do these things behind the scenes, and you know that that's what they've done and what they do, and you allow them in, you're really just committing suicide. Okay? So your church leaders have told you that the secret combinations, the secret societies, the Gadianton robbers are tobacco companies and alcohol companies, and that's laughable. Because the examples in your Book of Mormon, if you're Mormon, if you're Utah and you're not a Mormon, I'm just telling you this as a general piece of information. All you got to do is look at what it says, and that has nothing to do. It has to do with going in and taking over and stealing from you and forfeiting your life for their purposes. This entire thing in Ukraine, right here, this entire thing there, has been robbing you now for a long time. And it's really stepped up, of course, in the last 10 months, 9 to 10 months. It's not about freedom. It's not about liberty. It's not about democracy. It's about money and power. And sacrificing you, your sons, and your daughters now in order for them to retain power. And Evan McMullin is for that. All right, that's all I got to say. I felt like I needed to put out a little something tonight, and that should do it. The internet connection is not really good here tonight. Yeah, weapon laundering. Well, yeah, weapon laundering, money laundering. Nobody's saying anything anymore about the labs there. And we just had a vote, I guess, in the UN, surprisingly, about whether there should be a resolution against NAZIs. And apparently a lot of nations said, no, there should be no resolution against NAZIs. How far we have fallen. And there'll be people that say, well, the history of Germany is all turned around, and it's not really what happened. Well, when you use the extant history, okay, even if it's made up, the extant history that's out there, if people are supporting what that extant history says, that speaks ill of them. Okay, regardless of what you think Germany was really about, or since the winners wrote history, maybe the bad things they said about Germany. That doesn't matter. What the extant information on the NAZIs are now in Germany, if people are not willing to stand up against that, it shows how far we've fallen, and things aren't going to get any better. All right, well, I'm not going to do any more commentary. My major purpose here was to say, if you decided to vote, that's with all of the arguments about submission and all of that, and agreeing and consenting to whatever happens. I understand. But at this point, I think, as I said a few months back, witnessing and expressing your conscience, I think, are really where it's at right now, regardless of the outcome at this point. Maybe we'll get lucky. I don't know. The nation is so evil right now, by and large, what we've allowed to happen. And I mean, I just don't need to enumerate it here. You all should know. You all should know. So I won't name any other names, but that one in Utah, it shouldn't even be on the ballot. All right, everybody. I'm not sure, if it probably won't be up tomorrow at all. Republican voters will be put on the list Wednesday morning. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I realize that, Jesse. That's why I say you got to vote your conscience, and you've got to be a witness. This is a war against anybody who expresses dissent. Our country was built on the premise of dissent against policies that the people don't agree with, right? But it also had protections to protect the people against majority coercion. Our country wasn't a country where if everybody decides to vote and say that you can't own a gun, that cannot go forward. That our country was built on the premise that even if Congress and the people vote to take your weapon, they can't do that because majority coercion is prohibited. But that's what they've turned us into. It's like jury nullification. They don't talk about jury nullification anymore, which is actually the most powerful tool the people have. And that the courts are telling people they can't do that in so many ways. So, if you get my drift, the whole idea here, as I've said for a long time, you are the target. You are the ones that they want to take out. Okay. Again, conscience and witness. I think that's really where it's at right now. Okay. It's interesting. They might just do a limited nuclear exchange over there, but that won't remain like that for very long. I don't know how this is going to be avoided at this point. Not when you hear the people that run this government in particular talk the way they do. So I'm surprised we're actually here and it's actually going to happen tomorrow, but I think, like I said, there have been plans put into place, and so we'll see how, by the really bad folks. So we'll see how this turns out. Maybe we'll get a reprieve, but I think the program is too far along for them to allow it to get a setback. But again, express your conscience and your witness, your testimony. All right. That's all I've got. Maybe we'll see not tomorrow, not even after the elections. They're trying to do things and say, oh, well, all the votes can't be counted. We used to do that just fine. Vote all the counts on the same day as the election. What did I just say? Count all the votes on the same day of the election. We used to be able to do that, and we used to hold other countries in derision when they did not conduct their elections legitimately. But we always point the finger and then never hold ourselves responsible, right? Okay. All right. That's all I've got for you tonight. Yeah, I'm pretty somber. American people might be aware, but do they have the will to really stand up and do what it takes? I don't know. We'll see. Y'all take care. Out here for now. Prep, pray, stay out of the way. Keep your situational awareness on high, eyes on the horizon, ears to the ground. Okay? We'll see.